the whole reason why we're even having an event like this and we made it to where we are is because of everybody in this room. And that's something that's really meaningful to me. That's something that when we have, and I have both personally and professionally difficulties, the fact that there's so many committed people in this room, and there's people who will literally run through walls and knock down walls to accomplish things for Tzadik and for other people on the team, I think it's amazing, and I really wanted to say thank you, and that's something that I don't think I do enough. So thanks everybody here. Okay, so I spoke about the Google reviews, and there was one word in the Google reviews that I don't know why it bothered me, and it was a word that kept coming up in both the 5-star reviews and the 1-star reviews, and it's that we're a young company. And then, as I was thinking about this, then I'm like, why is that word bothering me? And then I felt, well, you know, this is the 12th year of the company, so how could people say we're a young company? And I'm thinking, well, I'm 36 now, so I'm not that old, but who really wants to be old? Everyone would like to be young, or at least young at heart. So then I started thinking about it, I was like, you wanna know what? The problem with the word young is the problem with a lot of these things is how do you define it? So I was defining it in the sense that I needed to defend the fact that we're experienced and we know what we're doing, and then I started thinking, I was like, you know what, being young can also be associated with being open-minded, with following best practices. There's a lot of great things to be young. What happens the older you get? You want to be younger. So that ties to me into why was Tzadik even started? I don't know if everyone, I've talked about a few times why, about, and maybe I've used some anecdotal stories, which there's quite a few, but in 2007, which I don't know how close it seems, but I actually didn't have any experience in managing. I never, even though I'd been working for several years before 2007, I didn't have any training on how do you hire someone, how do you fire someone, how do you coach someone, how do you hold them accountable, how do you motivate people, how do you make processes? So originally, the whole goal, especially for real estate, investing in property management, was to hire another company. And I had said at the 10-year event 2 years ago that when I was trying to get a loan, we called every bank in South Florida. And that's true, but what I also didn't say was that was something that I did for almost everything. So I Googled property management, and I called every company that we could find in the state of Florida. And I found that we couldn't find a company at the time that had what we were looking for, which was people are happy, they're productive, they can make reports that make sense. It's not a very, there were so many sketchy low-income management or affordable property management companies. We ended up deciding maybe we'll redefine C-class, or we will redefine lower-income apartments and affordable apartments and manage them in an institutional way or professional way, a way that they should be managed. And that theme, I'm thinking about that of why Tzadik was started, and I think about today, and that theme is still really alive, and it's something that I think about all the time. What are best practices? Best practices are really when you're continually trying to better yourself. And I have another quote, although this is not just a quote, this is, I would say, a rule. This is something that I've now incorporated into my personal life, and I've kind of thought about what does that mean for the company. And I'll share this quote with you. It's from a psychologist, and it's, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. So think about that for a second. Most of the time, well, maybe I'm just talking for myself, but we're looking at somebody else and we're like, man, I wish I had that. Or you look at a celebrity and you're like, oh, this guy or this lady, look at what they have, look at what they do, this and that. But do you really know today what's going on with someone else? You have absolutely no idea. You're just seeing the kind of the facade. But do you know how your yesterday was? 100%. So the idea of that you should compare yourself to who you were yesterday is an amazing idea. Because it means that every day, forever, you should be trying to improve yourself. Whether it's your sleep, or your diet, or a relationship with your children, or your spouse, or your significant other, your parents, family, colleagues, co-workers, whatever it may be. This is something that, this is not going to become a core value, but this is something that, don't worry, we're not adding one. But this is something that I think is a forever concept. Always focus on improving yourself from yesterday. And so when I was thinking about this TED Talk, and I'm thinking about, well, I was going to talk about one thing, and I'm going to talk about another thing, and I tried to redefine in my mind of, you know what I'm doing is every day I'm listening to feedback that I'm getting, whether it's from Google or other people. I'm trying to improve what I'm going to speak about, so it's a more meaningful speech than what I was going to do before. So why the TED Talk? So the first reason why I wanted to do the TED Talk is you get to speak about something that you're interested in. So oftentimes, one of the ways that I'll speak at a town hall is I'll ask Christina, what does everyone want to hear? And then I'll try and figure out what I'm going to say. So in this particular instance, I have a captive audience, and I get to speak about what I want to speak about. Now the thing with a TED Talk is and you'll notice all the speakers on a TED Talk on YouTube, it's something that they're passionate about. It's something that they've spent their life learning about. It's something that they want to share. And then you voluntarily get to click on it and listen to it. Hopefully it's interesting and gets a lot of views. So I don't have anyone here probably voluntarily in the sense like you're clicking on a link in YouTube, but the concept was that this should be something meaningful. It should be a bit different than just a town hall or probably the way in which I've spoken about before. Because I don't really think I've talked for an extended period of time like I'm doing right now so far. So hopefully it means something to everybody. So there was and I'm trying to tie together quite a few things. Hopefully it comes together at the end, which when we're thinking about core values and purpose and all these different things, something that I heard the other day that I thought was very important is that the goal of life is to find meaning. And I thought that was a bit strange because a lot of times we talk about, well, look for love or happiness or fun or something like that. And the idea behind meaning is that there's a purpose for all of us to be here, both personally and professionally. And the purpose of us being here, and the meaning for us being here, that never goes away. So sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're not. You fall in love, you fall out of love, you're in between, you're happy, you're sad, whatever the case may be. But the meaning is always there. Same thing at work. Sometimes we have good days, some days we have bad days, but the meaning doesn't change. As long as we have meaning, we're going to be engaged in our lives. Particularly at work, we're going to be engaged to the company, we're going to be engaged with the residents, we're going to be engaged with our coworkers. So oftentimes it's important to find something that transcends something that's temporary. And really the idea of everything that we're doing is to have sustainable meaning, sustainable purpose, because we all matter. Everyone's here for a reason. Everyone's position here, the position profile that was made, you being here, knocking down walls and doing everything that everyone does, and oftentimes it's not recognized. It's happening, but it's not recognized. You're doing that, and you want to do that because your day has meaning, and what you're doing has meaning. And you see it in certain statistics. So, who's an A player? An A player is really someone, ideally, that is good at what they do and enjoys it. If you're good at what you do and you enjoy it, hopefully you have meaning. Hopefully you find meaning in what you're doing. So our average rating, I think, was about a 3. stars and 1. And then you could categorize them into, if it's a 1 star, it's probably an employee we evicted, an employee who either quit or was fired, or a resident that had a work order or some really bad story for a very, very long time, and so they eventually post a one-star review. And then there was quite a lot of people, thankfully, who did post 5-star reviews. There was some people who did in between 5 and 1, but I really noticed that there weren't that many. The summary of this whole exercise was actually nothing. I didn't really get anything out of it. I spent a few hours doing it, and I kind of just started just to see if there was a theme or there was something that would come to mind, and nothing really did. Then we had our executive meeting for the last couple days, and I wasn't really talking about this, but I was thinking about this the whole time that we were going through it, because we touched on a lot of topics that I was not expecting, and we really went in not having the idea of replacing our purpose, per se. The only thing that was suggested, and this was by Yu Ling, who's our general counsel, who's a lawyer, was she didn't like the term higher standard if we got sued. So it originally started out as maybe we should replace the words higher standard, and then we ended up going to redefine, which is really a powerful word. It's something you can remember, and there's really no point in having a company purpose if everyone doesn't know it. And so that was one of the things that we ended up wanting to, I guess, redefine. And then the word redefine started to take a life in and of itself. And so now my speech, my TED Talk, or Adam Talk, is being redefined as we speak. So before I kind of get into it, I do want to say the other 2 jokes that I found on Google, because I thought they were pretty decent anyway. So I don't know if anyone here reads the comic Dilbert. And this is actually something I'm going to talk about. So it says, this is the boss or manager talking to Dilbert. He says, for the 10th year in a row, the employee satisfaction survey says morale is low. Managers' bonuses are linked to these results. You can be sure we'll make big changes to the survey. And then the next one is, people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. I'm using the term net, not gross. So what net means is that you take everyone who's a promoter, which if you guys all remember the annual survey that we've done, is this survey basically says if you're giving a 9 or a 10, then you would be comfortable recommending to friends, family, other people you know in the industry to come and work for Tzadik. If you're scoring 6 or less, then you wouldn't. And 7 or 8 kind of doesn't count. So I don't know if we actually ever explained the survey, but that's how it works. So 30% is we took everyone who is a promoter of the company, and you subtract everyone who would not promote the company, and that's how you get 30%. So we're talking through this at the executive meeting the last 2 days, and this is, I guess, a glimpse into how crazy I make other people on the executive team. And we're going through this, and our business coach, Howard, says, well, if you want to have an exceptional company in any industry, you need to have a net 50 to 60% net promoters. If you do that, the profitability will take care of itself, and a lot of these other things will take care of itself. You should have 50 to 60%. So he goes and he writes on the board 50 to 60%, and at that part I kind of just completely mentally checked out. Because I'm thinking, well, if we have 30%, you should be at 50 to 60%. Well, I want that. And he starts writing on the board, and I didn't realize what he was attaching the 50 to 60% to. And I turned and I looked at Christina, I was like, Christina, that's amazing. Your KPI next year is 55%. Or 60%. And, but I didn't realize that he put the 10-year goal was to get to 55 or 60%. And I was like, oh, we're gonna do that next year. Probably not necessarily realistic. But anyway, it's just, I was like, I want amazing. Why wouldn't we want to have this right away? So this is probably something that Christina will speak about later today in more detail. But this whole thing is tied into what I'm talking about, which is a net promoter of a company is someone that has meaning. The company has meaning, you have meaning, you feel that you're there not just to do a work order, but that there's something that is more to doing work orders for a resident than simply doing a work order. So something, how the guy who was speaking at the conference about Crave and this whole concept, he says one of the biggest things that's missing today is praise. Now I'll just tell you for myself, when someone says praise, I kind of cringe, because for me, first thing that kind of comes to mind, and this is not how it is for a lot of people, but for myself, is someone giving like very superficial or vacuous statements to someone else that's not that meaningful, and you're just saying it just to say it. And he gave an example, and I'm going to try and change his example to something that's more relevant for us. As he said, an example of praise that's meaningless is, hey, good job on that work order. Okay, so that's an example of crappy praise. What's an example of better praise? Hey, I know that you were really busy today, and that resident that was just extremely difficult, you went above and beyond during your lunch break to fix that water leak, and you got that resident to smile, and you just took care of a major problem that's been plaguing us for 30 days. Thank you. Okay, so one took like 2 seconds and one took, 10 or 15 seconds. But one was much more meaningful because it was constructive. It wasn't just some generic, hey, good job, which is something I've been very guilty of. It's something that has more context for the person and the task and the situation that's much more relevant. And this particular guy says that every person in a company, every week, throughout your 40-hour or however many hours you work, you should take 10 minutes every week, 1 minute a day, 2 minutes a day, it doesn't matter, and you should give constructive praise to someone else. Not to do it just because you're forced to, but to do it because it's the right thing to do, and it also helps develop a connection with that other person, with your other colleague, with your other coworker. And guess what? They'll do it back to you, and then before you know it, you're developing a bond that you wouldn't have if you didn't do something like this. And I thought about that because does everyone have 10 minutes in a week? Yes, everyone has 10 minutes in a week. Could someone take 15 seconds to do something in a much better manner? Absolutely. These are things on the survey that we did, the reason why, pretty much across the board, even though we did score high on certain things, on the survey, one thing that we scored really low on was praise. And it was company-wide, it was in corporate, it was with regionals, it was with managers, it was repairs, it was everyone in the whole company. We scored very, very low on praise. And there's a difference between recognizing people and having meaningful comments like what I'm describing on a regular basis. So this will be something that we want to make kind of forever. So for myself, what I said is, well, yesterday, did I do enough praise? Did I take a minute or so today to recognize people who really knocked down walls or found ways around them and did something special that should be recognized? Because who doesn't want to be recognized if you did something that was truly meaningful and was really great? So the Net Promoter Score is a way to quantify, I'm big on numbers, so it's a way that we can quantify and tell if we're actually doing a good job, if we're really moving the needle. So I'm going to use that as a really a non-segue into something else about meaning and about best practices and about something that was brought up to me, and I was thinking about what's the best way to weave in job security. So that's kind of a loaded topic, and that's something that people talk about. And I've spent a decent amount of time researching this, and the problem with job security is that it doesn't exist. It's almost a myth, because the idea of job security is a sense of stability. But the problem with job security is that you're ceding your control to something that you may or may not have any power over. You may just be completely circumstantial. So what is true security? What is true job security? It's security in yourself. It's security that you are comfortable from a self-esteem standpoint. You're comfortable in your life. You're comfortable that if circumstances change that you do not control, it will be okay. And that's something that's not the answer that a lot of people would hear, but what is the other answer? Is the other answer, I'm just going to work for the same company for the rest of my life? I think we all would like to, but the reality is that's not realistic. I've worked for a number of companies, and I'm working for Tzadik right now, but is that going to be the only company I work for my whole life? I don't know. Probably everyone in here has worked for a number of different companies. And the idea is that when you're working for a company, it should have meaning and you should connect, and we all hope it's a very long and meaningful journey. And after we're done working, whatever company we're working at, is that we carry relationships with us. So that as we move through life, those relationships don't just disappear. Those relationships are with us forever. And then we have a secure life. It's much more important to have a secure life than just a secure job. Your life is with you your whole life. Right? That's part of the deal. So I wanted to say that because we're going through very normal but also difficult company transitions, where we've transitioned from being in South Florida to Central Florida to Northern Florida to different places in Georgia to Texas to South Dakota, buying in North Dakota, buying in Nebraska, looking to put properties under contract in other states as well. Christina casually mentioned the third-party company. So we're bidding on companies that have over 20,000 units that are probably in 6 different states. Maybe in Florida, maybe in Georgia, maybe in Oklahoma. Now, I'm not sure, but the one thing that is constant forever is change. So if you want to feel secure in something, you should feel secure in your own life, in your own being, how you feel about yourself. That's real job security. So if I were to, I totally forgot something I said I was going to do. I always ask for questions, but I always do it at the end. And I told myself I was going to ask for questions at the very beginning, so that if anyone thought about a question, you could tell Tyler. Or if you just happen to see me over the next, today, tomorrow, whenever, you can write it down, give that paper to Christina or Tyler, or just find me and ask me. That's completely fine, because I normally ask for questions and then people have questions later, so I wanted to do that. But I wanted to finish up by saying that I really appreciate everybody here. I think that the journey that we're all on has been an amazing journey. This has been something for myself that's just been unbelievable for me. And this part of my life has been very meaningful, and when we go through all sorts of difficulties that I really don't take the time to verbalize, one of the ways that I get through it, and I wish my wife was here, she was supposed to be here, but she's a little under the weather. I wanted her to hear this, but she always tells me, she's like, you want to know what? If you didn't have such a great team around you, she's like, I don't know how you would do this. And that's really true. From the corporate office to the field and the executive team, everyone here is really unique. And I really am happy, and I think that's one of the happiest and most meaningful things is building a company with the culture that we have. This is very tough. And a lot of companies don't have this. So if I were to leave everyone with something, I'm really going to leave everyone with something that you've given me, which is that whenever there's obstacles in your way or walls in your way, keep doing what you're doing and either find a way to knock down those walls or find a way around them.